What's up, guys? We're back with another educational video, and this week we're talking about autophagy. But first, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment for the algorithm. I've done quite a few videos on autophagy, but this one got inspired by my friend James Smith. He recently did a 72-hour fast. Now, why did he do a 72-hour fast? James published a video basically kind of like saying that there's nothing magical about fasting, just a way to create a calorie deficit. And the comments were people losing their mind. Every different group has like their own sort of personality. The crazy vegans are like the ex-girlfriend, like the really crazy ex-girlfriend who like burns stuff on your lawn. Carnivores are like the really annoying bully from high school who thinks he's hot, but then in 50 years, he's going to be 100 pounds overweight. The fasting people, very particularly, are the smug know-it-alls who actually know nothing. So James does this video, and the comments are, you're an idiot. There's proven longevity benefits to fasting. People aren't fasting for weight loss. This is for overall health and autophagy. I can guarantee you that 99.9999999% of people who talk about autophagy have absolutely no clue what it is other than what they Googled for 5 seconds and came back with, it's a cellular process of removal of junk, and it's basically like the body's recycling system. Autophagy, because, you know, I actually studied this stuff in graduate school. Autophagy is what's basically referred to as lysosomal protein degradation. So you have these things called lysosomes in your cell that do find old, misfolded, misshapen proteins, and they break them down through the process of lysosomal protein degradation. That liberates those amino acids, so those amino acids from those misfolded or old proteins can be taken and used to resynthesize new proteins. There's also proteasomal protein degradation, there's calpain, caspase, there's a bunch of different types of protein degradation. I don't know why autophagy has become this like rallying cry for everybody who does fasting. So let's talk about autophagy. Does fasting increase autophagy? Yes, fasting increases autophagy. You know what else increases autophagy? Exercise. You know what else increases autophagy? Plain old boring calorie restriction. Say it ain't so. In fact, there's a lot more studies showing that calorie restriction increases autophagy than fasting. And I think this is where a lot of the confusion lies. Because I think people, they basically say 24 hours or 36 hours. You pick whatever metric they pick. Autophagy kicks and you go into autophagy mode. Whatever the hell that is. Yeah, as you fast for longer, your rate of protein degradation goes up. Cool, I guess. But here's why this is kind of dumb. You fasting zealots, you're telling James and I that it's not about weight loss. It's just about overall health. Okay, well then guess what? We got to compare apples to apples, because if you're doing a 72-hour fast, you're not eating anything for 3 days. And if it's not about weight loss, let's take the example of somebody who's just maintaining their body weight with 2 different approaches. Let's say somebody maintains their body weight on 2,000 calories per day, and they have a certain rate of autophagy, okay? Because autophagy is not an on or off switch. Autophagy is always happening. Even if you're eating 10,000 calories in a day, you're still getting some autophagy. It never just shuts off. When you're eating more, you'll have relatively less autophagy. When you're eating less, you'll have relatively more autophagy. So let's look at these 2 different approaches. Somebody maintaining their body weight on an average 2,000 calories a day, that means their weekly average calorie maintenance is 14,000 calories per week. If said person fasts for 3 days, they're consuming 0 calories. Their rate of autophagy will go up. And then, since they're going to maintain their body weight, since you guys told us it's not about weight loss, cool. That means they're going to have to eat 3,500 calories on each of their 4 remaining days. So guess what? On the days where they're fasting, their rate of autophagy is greater than somebody who just eats 2,000 calories a day. But what happens on the days when they're eating 3,500 calories? Well, their rate of autophagy is going to be much lower than people who are eating just the 2,000 calories per day. The net difference over the course of a week is going to be 0, none, nada, zip, and that's it. That's the video. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not done yet. This is not difficult math to work out, okay? If you are fasting, because again, the difference here is I'm comparing apples to apples. And people say, well, I don't compensate by eating more on my days where I'm not fasting. Okay, then that means you're in a calorie deficit now. And let's compare it to a calorie deficit. I can continue down the same argument. There is zero evidence that fasting makes a difference on autophagy compared to the same amount of calories consumed over the course of a week, period. And there's no evidence it's better for body composition, and there's no human evidence it's better for longevity. There is a single study in rodents done by people who are very pro-fasting, where they showed that longevity was a little bit better in rodents that fasted. Except here's the problem. Rodents live about 2 years. A 16-hour fast in rodents is like the equivalent of a month for humans. Also, rodents are a really bad model for longevity. Here's the problem with doing longevity studies in humans. You can't do a randomized control trial for life. You're only isolated to epidemiology and cohort studies. So animals, you can actually do a randomized control trial on lifespan. But rodents are a very, very poor model for that. Why? Because humans, their growth curve is they are born, they grow, they get to their 30s-ish, and they kind of stop growing in terms of lean mass. Some of us continue to put on fat mass. But in terms of lean mass, they kind of cap out around 30. Now, again, people say, what if you're resistant to? Yeah, of course, that changes stuff. But for the most part, you cap out around 30, and then as you enter your 50s, 60s, it starts to come down. Rodents, on the other hand, grow throughout the entire course of their life. They only start to plateau as they get near the end of their life. Very, very poor model for longevity compared to people. And again, a 16-hour fast in rodents is like a 1-month fast in humans. So let me know how many of you have done a 1-month fast. Let's look at the studies that actually have the most application to human longevity. And those are the studies in rhesus monkeys. So primates, close to humans, and they didn't do fasting, they did calorie restriction. Now, here's where people even get the calorie restriction part wrong. Because some people said, oh, so I got to restrict calories for the rest of my life? I know how these animal studies are done. So when they say calorie restriction, what they're actually talking about is they just measure how much they normally feed these animals, and they let them eat however much they want, and they restrict that by a certain amount. So guess what? If you put an animal in captivity, it tends to overeat when you give it free access to food. Okay, when it doesn't have to hunt it down and find it, it tends to overeat. In these monkey trials, I believe they calorie restricted them by 30%. Did they lose weight throughout the entire course of their life? No, which means they weren't calorie restricted the entire time. They lost a little bit of weight initially, and then they plateaued and maintained it. So it was a small weight loss diet, but not much, because it wasn't really a 30% calorie restriction, most likely. It was they're eating 30% less than they would eat if they just ate however much they wanted. So it put them into a slight caloric deficit. They lost a little bit of weight, but they maintained a healthy body weight throughout the course of adulthood. And if you look at the hazard ratios and the odd ratios and the risk of mortality in people who are overweight or obese, it makes sense as to why this would work. None of this stuff is magic. It is simply preventing you from gaining excessive body fat, which is one of the biggest risk factors for heart disease, cancer, and early mortality. I wish it was more complicated. I wish I had something magic to sell you, but it's literally that simple. Do not become obese, do not gain excessive body fat, and you are getting a lot of longevity benefits. And there is no evidence that calorie restriction somehow provides benefits beyond that, and there's no evidence that fasting provides benefits beyond that. If you like to fast in order to control your overall calorie intake, then by all means do it. It is a useful tool. Some people love fasting, whether it be the 16-8 protocol, 24, 5-2 fasting, alternate day fasting, 1 meal a day, whatever tickles your fasting funny bone. Feel free to do it. That's a lot of F's. A lot of F's right there. And I didn't even say the F word. So again, I'm not saying that fasting doesn't have benefits. I'm just saying that those benefits are from the calorie restriction it imposes, not because of something magical inherent to fasting itself. Do what you do and try to argue with me in the comments. Get after it. I'll catch you next time.